Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, guys, you know this is one of my favorite parts, is the beginning, because I get an opportunity to welcome the guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I personally deem very expensive. Time, 24 hours. And Ella's coming to spend some of that. And once it's spent, it is spent. And so we want to thank her for coming and spending some of this quality stuff with us. The other is the journey. The journey is a creator. Our journey creates us, but it deposits certain things in us. And we want access to those things that has been deposited in Ella from her journey. And we want to honor her for coming and allowing us access to those things. What are those things? Wisdom, knowledge, insights, all of those wonderful things. And so, Ella, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
It is an honor. I usually toss this question to the person that comes, and I'll toss it to you. I mentioned briefly that one of our gifts that we get to enjoy while we're here on this planet is servant, to be a servant, to serve others. How do you serve mankind?
Well, my gift is in education, inspiration, and motivation. I've been through a lot myself, and I found a way to channel some of my challenges into inspiration for others. For example, one of them is immigration, overcoming adversity. Other things are health challenges. So I wrote multiple books on how you can heal yourself from inside out by healing the universe inside of you. And so gut health has become my specialty. And I recently wrote another book. It's called the Foodie Diet. It's all about how to fall in love with your fuel, or what I call the food that loves you back, what our body really needs. And for me, this is the definition of healthy eating, because healthy eating just speaks to our mind only. And most of us know that we should be eating better, right? Most of us know that we should eat healthier. But I really wanted to answer the question or understand my clients or people, like, why do we do what we do when we know what we know? Very often, it's not enough to just know. It doesn't translate itself into habitual new behaviors. So for me, it was really tapping into people's hearts to create the difference, to create new way of looking at things. And yeah, that's what I do mainly for my work, is to inspire people to take care of themselves better, to have more vitality in their bodies, and to connect the mind to the body.
It is the house that, and I tell people when you say holistic, I love that terminology, but people don't understand that terminology at all. Holistic means everything, your body, your mind, your everything. And when you have a holistic approach to things and see the tool or the purpose of the food and having healthy, good stuff, how it relates to all of it, wholeness, wellness, in mind and body. And when you have that unified approach to life, you become even more powerful. One of the things customs that we do here at Threads of Enlightenment is to go back. I like to go back to the beginnings of our beginnings, I call it. One of the space that we visit is family. And then we have our process all the way through to becoming, quote unquote, an adult. And, you know, many of us don't want to become adult, including me. But the very first space that we hang out is the family. This is where we learn lots of stuff. Communication with people, communication with self, communication with food, communication with many things. And we learn habits, all these different things like that.
Yes.
What was your family unit like?
Yeah, we learn habits, and we learn some of the behaviors that are not beneficial for us. And this is why it's so important what you're saying. Like, I also see how my clients are struggling with issues and behaviors. And when we really dig deeper, it's like, why do you think that? Why do you, and then like, why do you do that? And it all takes you back to your childhood patterns and whatever happened there and how you made yourself feel safe. So my story is interesting. Like, I grew up eating all organic food. They were all naturally grown. Organic meaning not that it was bought in an organic supermarket with the label on it. Organic meaning that my family were very self-sufficient, and we had grandparents had a huge garden and the farm where the entire family would get all the food from. So I would have to spend all my summers holidays helping my grandparents to take care of all the foods, to grow the vegetables, to water the plants, to take out the weeds, to take care of the animals. So at the end of the season, all these animals or I would see to get slaughtered just to our family have food throughout the cold winter months, or
Yeah.
all the vegetables that I would take care of, they would all get pickled or cooked or, taken care of so the family has food.
Uh-huh.
For me, this was a full cycle. I've always been very in touch with the natural way of living, and it was way beyond the science. Right now, science is catching up. It's like, actually, pickled vegetables are good for you. Actually, eating in harmony with seasons and eating vegetables picking when they're at their ripest is where the nutritional density is at the best. And I always tell people, like, I learned nutrition science not at universities. I learned it by living this life early on and really seeing how seasonality affects your patterns, affects what we
Yeah.
should be putting in ourselves. Not just like science told you to eat broccolis. That means you have to eat broccolis for the rest of your life every day, no matter what it is, right? So most people are very disconnected with that. And I try to educate in some in my books that I write about individuality and bio individuality, seasonality. All of this has to play a role. But what I also noticed from my childhood experience is that sometimes it's not enough. The types of food you eat to dictate the outcomes of your health. For example, stress is one of the underlying issues for many diseases. And despite the fact that I was eating such great foods, right? It was just beyond organic, as good as it gets, no pesticides, nothing. So my family would only feeding their animals, the same food, only the best. I developed inflammatory gut condition by the age of 16.
Wow.
What? And so, yeah, it was definitely stress related. As a young woman, as a young teenager, I internalized a lot of emotions and stress related to my upbringing. So my father was very austere. He brought me, he was raised us like soldiers. Don't feel, just do the right thing.
Yeah.
It was feeling the feelings. It was too vulnerable. You won't survive. Everyone just had to look out after each other. And that's how my father took care of me. He really wanted me to be tough, but I was the most sensitive person. So yeah, my digestion started to fall apart. By the age of 15 or 16, I was already diagnosed with inflammatory gut conditions. And I remember the moment when I came home after the doctor and I had all this medication in front of me and I tried to memorize the protocol. I was like, I got this. This is before food. This is before sleep. This is after eating. This enzymes tincture. And I burst into tears. I was like, I can't memorize it. I'm going to fail. And I'm already a failure because I have more medication than my grandmother at the time. Having the goal of being tough, I was like, this is the failure of being tough. I'm not tough. I'm falling apart here. And so, yeah, it was hard. And I also started losing my eyesight very early on, at the age of 8. And by the age of 18, I had already done surgeries on my eyes. So you would think, right? The food was not it was a foundation, but it was not enough. There's a lot of issues, genetics and stress related. And so that's why now, fast forward, after all these years studying nutrition, I also teach mindfulness. And I've developed what's called the gut brain method, where the first part is all about science and the second part is all about mindfulness. It's all about ways to harness self-compassion, self-kindness, and just be kinder to ourselves and give your body a chance to heal.
Yeah. The diseases that we allow in our life, most of them are in the mind.
Yeah.
And the mind-body connection, because that dis-ease that is in the mind, in the thought, and because we are creators, we tend to create sickness in our body as a result of the mind. And I know thousands of people that have healed their body from the mind. And we have studies, science have studied, they call it the placebo effect.
Yeah.
And so that data showing that they are getting great and effective results of people healing major diseases in their body, and they call it the placebo effect. And yet they're giving the people all the meds. And if they can train the people how that are, look at those folks that are on the placebo effect, if you will, placebo,
Hmm.
see what they're doing to train the others. But that would shut down industries, wouldn't it? So they're never going to do that. So as you're moving through your life, here's this young girl affected by this disease and caused much trauma already. And she has all of these medications that are there. And you began to look at yourself, quote unquote, as a failure. What did the fact of that programming, because you're now going to program yourself as a failure and you're looking at all these meds, what did you do with your life and how did you manage it with all of these meds more than your grandmother?
Gravitated towards love. That was my medicine. So by the age of 18, I started to look for ways out of my home and my parents' house. And by the age of 19, as soon as I turned 19, I moved to America. I moved across the ocean
Hmm.
and I got married. And I remember I moved to America with a little suitcase, and half of that suitcase was like this big medicine box with a lot of medicine because I couldn't eat without it. I was just relying on that because I was full of anxieties and fears. And so I got married 6 weeks later after I moved to America. And I think a few years later, I found that box of medication and I was like, oh, everything expired. I didn't need any of that. What a waste. So I ended up not using any of that in America when I got married and I started to flourish and spread my wings in this safe environment of love. It
Hmm.
wasn't like entirely safe. I totally projected all my fears into my husband and like a relationship, but still, it was much better than my family. And so since then, I started to like recognizing myself, reestablishing myself, or almost like redeveloping myself. I
Hmm.
changed my name. I changed my entire identity. I got rid of my Russian accent. Like I took theater classes. I really Americanized. Like I have a first and last name in Russia that's completely different from Ella Dava, even though Ella Davar is my legal name here in the United States. But I was just playing with this new version of me. It's like, who can I be? And it was really it's actually recently that I thought I moved to America 18 years ago and I was
Wow.
18, like 19 years old. So half of my life that I was just, creating someone, undoing everything that was done to me the first 18 years.
That's fascinating to
Yeah.
hear. And as you created this new person, identity, as you said, and your
Yeah.
life, and you're moving through life, and how did you get into the space now where you began to look back at the importance of nutrition in your life?
As a young immigrant in New York, I struggled to make a living. And where do you go to, create a career and make money fast? I ended up on Wall Street. I'm very smart, also comes from my father. I got brilliant mind. So finance and math comes easy to me. So I graduated. I ended up working on Wall Street where I was the furthest and sickest version of myself and like furthest from my true self. I was
Yeah.
exercising every day, very masculine, trying to be model thin. Like I needed to be 10 out of 10, like very like New York, Manhattan personality, very type A, very hard on myself, trying to succeed and achieve. At the time, there's a lot of different diets trending in New York. I was eating all the raw diet, like chopping coconuts at 7 a.m. because coconut was the juice of life, like the raw water from coconut, or eating these raw salads. I tried to be like vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, Ayurvedic. Like I studied yoga, like I was Ayurvedic diet. So there's all these diets that I was trying for vanity, like I just
Hmm.
wanted to be like super skinny. I was like
Yeah.
vegetarian, meat is the enemy, and all these things. All those things were trending. All these juice places were popping up. That was around like 12 years ago. And then I was so confused after trying all these diets. And then there's a dietitian that changed my life by changing my relationship with food.
Hmm.
So she created a diet according to my own body. Instead of listening to all this advice, like I heard that, I read that, someone said that right from the outside, suddenly it was like, oh, my body is saying that. So the information from inside out that changed my life completely, that I started to look at food not as my enemy, like that makes me fat, that's bad for me, I should shouldn't be eating that. Instead, I started to look at food as my medicine. It's like, this is good for me. I should be doing more of this. This is even better for me. And personalized nutrition protocol. Since then, I got really into this topic. And now, fast forward, I am that dietitian that changes people's lives by changing what their relationship with food and what's on their plate.
Yeah, that's beautiful because everything is relationship, Ella. Everything. Relationship with food, relationship with money, everything is relationship. We're having relationships all through our life. And how we show up in that relationship will dictate how our life is.
Yeah.
And so it's very important. I always tell people, be very mindful of your relationships because now we have relationships all day long. And don't look at it just between people, your relationship with money, all that stuff. It's a mindset. Relationship is based on a belief. So as you are now this individual, as you were studying all the data and you saw the importance of food along with your body and stuff like that, because I remember they had a thing with diet food according to your blood type. And I remember getting my blood type and I looked at the food and stuff like that. And there was this line there saying that my blood type can eat sushi. And so I wrote the publisher and the author. And I said, I think you have you made a mistake.
Yeah.
I literally wrote them. I said, I think there is something wrong with your data because I love sushi. But anyway, talk to us, Ella, about once you started making that transition and this nutritionist showed you the relationship between you and food.
Yes.
What was that relationship like?
It was just based, and it wasn't like sushi, because sushi is a lot of different things, right? It was very specific, very easy to follow. At first, it was confusing. I remember I had like a big no and like a list of things next to it, but it was very easy. It was like gluten. It was things like alcohol, yeast, and dairy. And once I eliminated that, I felt the difference. I felt like a new version of myself. And for me, it really worked. And even though like it's not as obvious for some people, like they could eat gluten and feel like shit and they don't eat like they even when they don't eat it, they also feel more or less the same, like they just like don't really connect it. But most people do. It's the most cheapest and what we call like the golden standard of elimination diet. Like you don't even have to do a ton of tests. But if you are struggling with nagging symptoms like bloating or indigestion or low energy, brain fatigue, eliminate the food or like especially these triggers that I just mentioned. They're the most common ones for 21 days and see how you feel. Very often people feel the difference.
Yeah, I do. And this has been a custom of mine for many years now. Every year I do a 30-day fast where it's just water. And
Completely reset.
I reset my body, reset my mind. And it's fascinating what happens to the mind as you're walking through the days. And I can tell you which day my body's going to go nuts. And I can tell you what day and time and all that stuff because I've done it so many times. But I remember day 5, day 3 to 5, the body begins to detox and all of the madness that goes into the mind in relations to the body and the conversation that I'm having, trying to navigate the body beyond day 5 because day 6, all of that, those thoughts disappear. So as you are applying what you are learning, Ella, and you're looking at your body, you focus a lot on gut health because that is really that's where a lot of people are sick.
Yeah, and it's the
right
root.
there.
Yeah.
How did you because I know as a young woman, you got sick and after you came to the States, nothing much. How did you get that relationship with the food and your gut health? How did that come about and became something that you focused on?
Yeah, it was first, it's covered in my studies when I became a functional dietitian. I got a medical degree after I switched from finance. I got through medical school and clinical nutrition and medical nutrition therapy. And that's where we studied microbiome and its relationship to the brain, to the hormones, detoxification, and how everything starts in the gut. And it wasn't until, so I started working in longevity clinics in New York. That's where I started testing the gut as part of the protocols. And I started to get like insights from it. but it was hard to translate into like practical advice until it happens to me. So when I moved to Florida around like 5 years ago, I had eczema for the first time in my life. And as a
Well,
young, beautiful girl, my skin is always perfect because I do everything right. I walk my talk, I eat all the vegetables, green leafy vegetables, berries, omega-3s, right? All the anti-inflammatory diet foundations. And eczema came and it was really bad. And then I did everything. I worked with doctors, right? So it was like very easy access to high quality information. I did all the detoxes. I did everything until next month. It came back again in a different spot. And I was like, I need to be treating the root cause. It's coming from inside out, and it was really bad. And so I did the comprehensive stool test on me, everything that I was doing for my clients, and I
mhm.
couldn't connect that with practical advice until I did it for myself. And I diagnosed myself with parasites and I treated myself with like herbal protocols. Never had eczema since then.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
amazing.
yeah, so
I
since
had
then, I started testing everyone, and it's a completely different understanding.
I heard about that test, and I got to make sure I grab it, some data on that. But a friend of mine, she was telling me about that, and when she took that test, it showed because she was having same thing, and it was such a powerful tool to give her all the data that she needed.
Mhm.
And once you found what it was, and I was telling the story, I had H. pylori,
Yes.
and went to the doctor. I remember when this thing, it was incredible pain, and we got there. And when they found that out, because it took them about a year before they found that out, they put me on this antibiotic treatment, and I took it and whatever, and did nothing. And so I personally started doing some research, and I found out that Manuka honey from Australia, and the stuff within that honey with the bees and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that was one of the treatment that they were looking into for H. pylori. And so I bought it, that and some not antibiotic, but probiotics, and some real high quality probiotics. And I remember how when I took the Manuka honey, I would take a spoonful. I remember when I took it and I ate it. You could put it on bread, but I ate it. I knew stuff was happening within my body from a spoonful of Manuka honey, and the antibiotics did nothing. But I took that, and I've never, ever had any kind of pain related to H. pylori. I went to test, and they said all the area where that was sensitive and stuff, that healed
Mm.
everything. So nature provides much of the stuff that we need, and pharmaceuticals are from nature,
Yes.
and they take it and then they synchronize it and they produce the stuff, but it originates there, but they're telling you to stay away from nature. Isn't that something else? So as you began to see the correlation, and you became your first client in the sense where you saw it for yourself, where you got healed from this stuff, and you now are going to bring it into practice. You said you start doing it with everyone. As you are doing that, talk to us of some of those stories, because those you guys are listening, your nutrition and your gut health is very important. Inflammation and all these different things linger there, and it is one of the sources for many of the diseases. Stress, as I talked about, but that bacteria in our gut is one of the most sensitive areas that you need to pay attention to, because much of the sicknesses and diseases are from inflammation that
Yeah.
came from there. So be very careful. And we're going to provide all of her stuff. Get her books, man. Get healthy in your mind and your body. So here you are. You have applied the approach to you. You see work. Talk to us about some of those clients, because I know you have a ton of them. And I want those that are listening, Ella, to some stories of people
Mhm.
and how it really affected them. You gave us yours with eczema. Talk to
Yeah.
us about some other folks that you were able to help to make the transition and see the importance of food and their mindset and so forth. Talk to us about bringing them in
So
unity.
colon cancer is on the rise right now, and the
Mhm.
statistics are just completely crazy when we see that actually colorectal cancer is the number one leading cause of other cancers among people that are younger, under
Mhm.
50 years old. So that's why we started testing everyone just for preventative purposes. And you'll be surprised that H. pylori is actually before cancer develops, right? It takes a long time for it to get there. So H. pylori is tightly associated with ulcers, and ulcers are
Yep.
associated with cancers. And so catching those early is very important. And I do diagnose, I would say not a lot, but I do diagnose people with H. pylori. And this is a win for us to find that early on to treat it. And I'll be honest with you, it truly depends on concentration and density of it to be able to treat it naturally. I'm sure you've heard of antibiotics
Yep.
use. Don't prescribe antibiotic. I leave that off to the doctor's interpretations, but at least we can catch it or can treat it naturally before it overgrows and it becomes an issue. Next thing is parasites. Also depends on the parasites. I've diagnosed some clients with that, specifically those that have animals in their house and that like eat together with their animals or like use
Hmm.
the same water bottle. Like I've heard crazy stories. Like that's what we see. And parasites are tightly associated with stress and anxiety. Very often we see people who are like emotionally unstable or going through a lot in their life. That's when they become more vulnerable to parasitic infections, right? So also immunity. Immunity is originating from our gut. So if you're someone who gets sick very often, just in general, I recommend optimizing your gut health and learning about your gut health to strengthen your immunity, to
Yeah.
be able to withstand all of these infections like yeast, parasites, or viruses. The stronger your immune system, the more chances that nothing, no matter what this year brings to us, everyone's afraid of 2020 of COVID. I'm like, well, you never know what the future brings. So we better be ready and become the most resilient and strongest selves. So my other clients also like inflammation. You mentioned inflammation, but you'll be surprised because I specialize in prevention. A lot of people we test for inflammation, different antibodies, but a lot of people that come to me, especially because I work in major cities like Miami and New York and
Yeah.
Switzerland, most people are already eating anti-inflammatory diet, which is like I mentioned earlier, green leafy vegetables, a lot of fiber from berries and grains. So I don't diagnose a ton of inflammation because inflammation is the organ itself, like the damage, but we do see a lot of dysbiosis, so imbalance of the bacteria, which is also in addition to food affected by like sugar intake, but also stress levels.
Yeah.
So dysbiosis and like just probiotic intake creates a difference. The other thing that I diagnose a lot, people that come to me, they're mostly under 50, most of my clients, but over the age of like 40 and over 50, we diagnose a lot of maldigestion, which
Wow.
is something that not a lot of people realize, that when we eat food, you know how they say, you are what you eat?
Hmm.
Most of us take this oversimplified statement for granted. Like, yeah, somehow we eat the food, we take a bite of our favorite piece of cake, and we don't think about it, right? Until we see like a symptom or some issue. Like, no one thinks about it. Most people take digestion for granted. They just feel
Yeah.
like it somehow takes care of itself, right? Like, I don't know, I have a heart issue, I have like these other big issues, but digestion got to take care of itself. But because of the stress, most people over 40 lose their enzymatic sufficiency. And that's what I diagnose a lot. That
Yeah.
very often with like they buy all this expensive food or these supplements, but they're not able to break it down and absorb it. So sometimes just taking more enzymes or some herbal, like
Hmm.
bitter herbs, or taking 3 deep breaths before eating, like just to really help your body to switch into
Yeah.
rest digest mode, creates the difference. And that's very surprising to a lot of people, that they would have to like take enzymes for a little bit just to allow their body to do its job properly.
Yeah. I'll give you guys a story how important health and eating is.
Yeah.
And I live in Thailand now, Ella. And when I was here in America, I lived in Florida as well, in Orlando, Florida.
Wow.
I'm currently here. I had acid reflux, pretty bad. I mean, intense, painful stuff. And when I got to Thailand, and because the food is different, it's closer to the earth, if you will. I think the first world, we have this thing with first world and third world and whatever. And the first world programmers do a disservice to the third world guys, because their product and their food is closer to the earth, because they pick them and they have these little farms and stuff like that, and these mom and dad little things in a garden. So I started buying fresh fruit from neighbors that were selling from their home and their yard and whatever. I started eating. I changed my diet. Ella, all of that. I stopped taking pills for heartburn. I don't have it anymore.
Mhm.
Just by adjusting my diet.
Mhm.
And so I noticed, and I started paying attention to that in my diet in the United States and my diet when I was in Asia, when I leaned a little more towards vegetable and stuff like that and beans and stuff, that all of the sicknesses that I had started to disappear. And so I want to encourage you guys, please, I'm going to provide all of Ella's stuff. Please get into her space. It's important. Being here on this planet, we only have a few years, 80 years, 90 some of us, but it's a few years. And you want to make the best of it. Your body-mind connection is very important, because once you make that, your life quality improves. Diseases and different disease in your body will disappear just from adjusting some diets and stuff like that, and bringing additional things like she talked about enzymes, how important. Breathing is important. Chewing slower is important. All of these little things you hear people talk about. If you apply it, and you'll see how you change your life. So here you are. You have, and I've been reading your stuff, Ella, and you've been on the scene for a while, and you have rescued many from our madness, if you will. As you are looking into Ella now, here's this Russian little girl that grew up on a farm, and you're looking at your life. And I saw the data, because I'm from healthcare, Ella, and I know the data, how the disease amongst the young is running rampant like crazy. Talk to us about some of that, your knowledge that you've gained, and you're looking at with our frame, you're seeing the sickness of us. Talk to us.
Wait, what is your question? I don't know.
Talk to us as to how would you lead us to coming on towards your side. Bring us, I know, again, you're seeing the data. You know
Yeah.
all of that,
Mhm.
and you know our crazy behavior
So my
as well.
biggest
You deal with it on a daily
takeaway and
basis.
advice, yeah, the advice is
Yeah.
really start learning about your own body. Like, get this. Right now, most people's attention are somewhere outside of themselves. Like, they're looking externally to get advice, to get information, to get access to. I think that the truth and the answer and the healer is always within. So whatever it takes. For some people, it's just like sitting quietly and meditating and listening to their own body, right? Very often our body does whisper some of the symptoms. And then when it starts screaming, that's when most of us finally hear it, right? So that's very important, that we start listening to our body, start paying attention. And number two is, which I love doing, is gather data from your own body. So the testings and some of the things that I've outlined in my book, The Utarian, and one of them is this test that I just mentioned, with all these different things that we test, just to learn from your own body instead of listening to 1,000 different recommendations outside of yourselves. And I don't know if you know much about healthcare and nutrition world. Right now, it's still confusing, like how it was confusing 12 years ago. I became a dietitian because it's still confusing. There's a lot of experts out there that are recommending now complete opposite advice. There's still people that are recommending vegan and vegetarian diet, and people who recommend carnivore and paleo, which is a complete opposite. And they both say like this is a key to health. How is this possible, right? So that's why I say like they all right and they're all wrong in their own regard. Like, instead, listen to your body, listen to what your body needs, test your hormones, test your gut, and find out from your own body. I feel like there's never like that's. I always tell my clients that I serve as interpreter, someone who helps their mind to interpret and understand their body, to create this beautiful mind-body connection that's with you for the rest of your life, that you could teach your children. When someone asks you, like, why do you do that? Why aren't you doing what other people are doing? You're like, well, because this works for me, because I invested time, energy, and money to learn what is best for me. And that's why, I don't know if I mentioned this, the title of my book, Vegetarian, I trademarked that term, because most of my clients come to me and they're saying like, I'm pescatarian, I'm vegetarian, I'm like flexitarian, nothing works, help me. And that's why I always tell them, like, have you tried listening to your body and becoming a Tarian, someone who doesn't point fingers? I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're eating this. Like, how dare you, and like, stop asking for advice or giving advice and like find the peace within. Like you just described, Ken, how you found out through your own journey and what best for you, what works best for you. And you only give advice to those who ask, right? For
Yeah.
those who ask for help, but those who are still looking for help, I think this is my biggest advice, is to really invest time, energy, and money into getting to know yourself, because this is the most empowering information that you'll ever have. And this is the best way to teach the next generation. Instead of 1,000 words of this like advice, just be the example of this empowered, calm confidence that knows exactly why they're doing it, and all the wisdom came from within.
Yeah, guys, that is such good advice, because you have to collect the data. Again, when the doctors gave me the news about the H. pylori, of course, I didn't know what was causing all the pain that I was going through. And I took their recommendation. And after it didn't work, I was like, I
Mhm.
need to study. And
Yep.
so I went and started collecting data on H. pylori. And I started looking at natural sources, healing thing for that. And I read about everything that I can get my hand on at that time about the probiotics and the manuka honey. I can't even tell you how I came out with that, but I found that these two products, and I applied it for my body. And I went back to the conventional physicians, the same guys that treated me and told me that I had it. And after I took my treatments and stuff like that, went back to those very same guys, had them run all the tests, and they couldn't believe what they were looking at. And so you have to don't surrender your advocacy to others, to other quote unquote gurus. They don't know you like you know you. Become a Eurytherian, as Ella said. Get the book, guys. Do the test. Follow her, the lead, if you will, so that you can. She talked about many people got their outcome, their desired outcome. She got her desired outcome. Take the map that is her book and follow that book. It's a map. It's a guide to get you to the other side, to your desired outcome. And it doesn't cost you the pain of all the crazy diets and what it does to your body. That's the piece that you need to be mindful of. Love your body. Love you enough to buy her book. Get the map. Love yourself
Thank you.
enough to get it. It's a map, and learn and become unified in your mind and your body. As you're here and you have done this work, tell me, what is it in your heart that you feel that, because we, as we are growing with self, we learn more and we acquire more, and our hearts kind of, when we are pulled to another direction and stuff like that, this weight sits on our heart. What weight sits on your heart when you look at society today? You look at yourself, you look at your knowledge, you see the effect on the young kids, you see all of these things. What is that weight that is laying on your heart? And how do you see yourself applying some kind of guidance from that?
The way that sits on my heart is, I think, the disconnection of our generations of people with nature. That I see people who give this different advice that they're so disconnected with nature. And I always try to like simplify or dumb it down to the most natural advice. Like I kind of like the blue zones where the researchers are using real people living on the island to study and like to prove that you don't need an Amazon delivery to be healthy. You don't need the Publix or all these like major supermarket foods to be healthy. That's not where the health is, right?
Yep.
Or nowadays they're all saying like you need this mattress like, that's cooling you down to be healthy. Like you need to be sleeping at certain temperature. And I'm like, guys, if every person, especially on the island who lived to 100 years old, would be blasting their AC all day, every day, all night, like this is not a way for sustainable longevity lifestyle,
Yeah.
So I feel like, and all of their arguments are so disconnected with natural way of living. They're just trying to create this controlled environment that they feel like they have an answer. And I always say like this is not, or like the best way is to sleep naked with open windows.
Yeah.
That's the nature. That's the most natural way when you're like, if you're not hiking, but you're sleeping at home, like just to find a way to just be more grounded in many different ways, in what you're eating and how you're feeling and how you're operating. I think that's what I see in what like kind of like what I would want to recommend to more people. And like I moved to Florida from New York City, and most people are like, huh, Florida, like these people judge it for many different angles. And I'm like, you know what? I just love the nature here. Like, yes, people might be like a little like flashy personalities, like there's different cultures, different and like less educated and stuff. But I was like, no, it's all about nature. And I feel like soon my next step after I've mastered Florida, next step for me is to get a house and a farm, and to have a garden. And actually, there's a story like when I used to live in New York City 15 years ago, way before Uber existed, there used to be these town cars. And one day it was raining, and I was this young girl from Russia that made it to the United Bank of Switzerland. I was working on Park Avenue. In my head, like I've made it. I'm like a big deal personality. And when this town car picks me up and takes me somewhere, there's this Indian guy sitting with the big turban, and he starts talking to me. Next thing I know, I give him my hand, like the palm of my hand, and he starts looking at it in front. And he tells me, like, you're going to end up like close to the earth or like on the land of the front. I'm like, what? Like, I just escaped that whole reality. As a young teenager, I told my grandparents, like, you guys, because, it takes a lot of effort to grow all that food. That's why overeating is not an option, especially when you have a big family. You have to grow and you have to make all that food. And I told my parents, like, you guys are all losers. You can buy all this stuff. Because in my mentality, I was like this program to do this, like a fast-paced life. I wanted to get out of the slow-paced life. And now I'm the opposite. And everything that guy said, now it's my dream. My dream is to be closer to nature and to invite other people to visit me, to host and to learn this connection to your nourishment. A nourishment that nourishes your body and your soul and your heart. Like that's what I feel like is what I want more people to connect with.
Well, that's awesome. I'm going to leave it right there. Guys, we're going to put all of her stuff in here. We're going to create all of the data that you need, the links and everything, so you can get to her book. As I said, love yourself enough to buy the book because it'll teach you how to eat, it'll teach you about you, your body, and you will make the connection because that is a tool that she has put together from the data and from life and from all the stories. And she put it out there so that you can follow it, do what she says, and then call her up and tell her how it works. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.